You think you're prepared. You've invested thousands into a safe room, stocked it with supplies, reinforced the walls, installed the best locks money can buy. You sleep better at night knowing that when disaster strikes, you have a fortress. But here's the brutal truth nobody's telling you. The moment the power grid fails, that safe room you're counting on could become your coffin. And most people won't realize it until it's already too late. If you're serious about survival, if you actually want to protect your family when the lights go out and chaos erupts, then you need to understand why your safe room is fundamentally flawed and what you must do right now to fix it before emergency strikes. Subscribe now, because this knowledge could be the difference between life and death when everything collapses. Let's talk about what really happens inside a sealed safe room during a prolonged power outage. Most people design these spaces with one thing in mind: keeping threats out. They focus on thick walls, reinforced doors, surveillance systems, electronic locks. They think about bullets, intruders, and external dangers, but they completely ignore the silent killers that build up inside. And those internal threats are far more deadly than anything outside because you won't see them coming, you won't hear them, and by the time you notice something's wrong, your body and mind are already compromised. The average safe room is designed to be airtight or near airtight to protect against chemical attacks, radiation, or forced entry. That's exactly what makes it lethal when power fails and your ventilation system dies. Here's what most people don't calculate. A single adult consumes approximately 20 to 25 cubic feet of oxygen per hour during rest. When you're stressed, afraid, or physically active, that number doubles or even triples. In a typical 10 by 10 foot safe room with 8-foot ceilings, you've got about 800 cubic feet of total space. Subtract the volume taken up by supplies, furniture, equipment, and bodies, and you're left with maybe 600 usable cubic feet of air. If you've got a family of 4 sheltering in that space, you're consuming roughly 80 to 100 cubic feet of oxygen per hour under calm conditions. That means your oxygen levels start dropping significantly within 6 to 8 hours, even if the room is perfectly sealed. But here's where it gets worse. As oxygen decreases, carbon dioxide increases. While oxygen depletion makes you tired and confused, carbon dioxide buildup actively poisons you. At concentrations above 1%, you'll experience drowsiness and headaches. At 3%, your breathing rate doubles and cognitive function deteriorates rapidly. At 5%, you're looking at severe oxygen deprivation, panic, rapid heart rate, and potential loss of consciousness. At 10%, which can happen in a sealed room within 24 hours with multiple occupants, you die. Most safe room owners assume their HVAC system or dedicated air filtration unit will handle this problem, and under normal circumstances, they're right. Modern safe rooms equipped with HEPA filtration, positive pressure systems, and NBC-rated air handling can maintain breathable atmosphere indefinitely as long as power flows. But the entire system depends on electricity. When the grid fails, your fans stop spinning, your filters stop pulling air, your positive pressure disappears, and your safe room transforms from a protected environment into a sealed tomb. You might have a backup generator, and that's smart, but generators require fuel, maintenance, and produce carbon monoxide, which means they can't run indoors or in enclosed spaces. If your generator is outside and gets compromised, stolen, or simply runs out of fuel during an extended crisis, you're back to zero. And here's what the safe room industry doesn't advertise. Most backup power systems are designed to run for 24 to 72 hours maximum. After 3 days, you're on your own, and if the power outage extends into weeks or months like we've seen in major disasters, your safe room becomes uninhabitable long before external threats subside. Temperature regulation is the second critical failure point that turns safe rooms deadly. Climate control isn't a luxury, it's a biological necessity. The human body maintains a core temperature of approximately 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can only deviate a few degrees in either direction before organ systems start failing. In summer, especially in southern regions where outside temperatures regularly exceed 95 degrees, a sealed room without air conditioning becomes an oven. Concrete and steel, the materials most safe rooms are built from, absorb and retain heat. Without active cooling, internal temperatures can reach 110 to 120 degrees within hours. At these temperatures, heat exhaustion sets in quickly. You'll experience severe dehydration, confusion, nausea, rapid heartbeat, and eventually heat stroke, which is fatal without immediate medical intervention. Your water supplies will deplete exponentially faster as your body desperately tries to cool itself through sweating. A person can lose up to 2 liters of water per hour in extreme heat, meaning your carefully calculated 3-day water supply could be gone in 24 hours. And here's the cruel irony. As you consume water faster, you also need to urinate more, which creates sanitation problems we'll discuss shortly, and the cycle of dehydration and heat stress accelerates toward death. Winter presents the opposite but equally lethal problem. In northern climates or during winter blackouts, temperatures inside an unheated safe room will equalize with outside ambient temperature within hours to days, depending on insulation. Hypothermia begins when core body temperature drops below 95 degrees. At 93 degrees, you lose fine motor control and cognitive function deteriorates. At 90 degrees, you become semi-conscious. At 88 degrees, your heart stops. People assume that being indoors provides protection from cold, but a concrete bunker without heat is actually colder than being outside with proper clothing and shelter, because concrete wicks heat away from your body. You'll burn through calories trying to generate warmth, depleting food supplies faster while simultaneously becoming too cold to think clearly or take effective action. Families have died of hypothermia inside their own homes during extended winter power outages because they underestimated how quickly cold kills when you can't generate heat. Humidity and condensation create another cascade of deadly problems in powerless safe rooms. Human bodies release moisture constantly through respiration and perspiration. A family of 4 produces approximately 2 to 3 gallons of water vapor per day just from breathing and sweating. In a sealed space without ventilation or dehumidification, that moisture has nowhere to go. It condenses on walls, ceilings, equipment, food supplies, and eventually creates standing water. Within 48 hours, you'll see visible condensation. Within a week, mold begins growing. Black mold, aspergillus, and other toxic fungi thrive in dark, humid, enclosed spaces. These organisms release spores and mycotoxins that cause respiratory distress, severe allergic reactions, immune system suppression, and in extreme cases, death. Children, elderly family members, and anyone with existing respiratory conditions are especially vulnerable. The air you're breathing becomes actively toxic, and there's no escape because you're sealed inside. Your food supplies also absorb moisture and spoil rapidly. Packages swell, grains develop mold, electronics corrode and fail. Everything you stored to keep you alive degrades and becomes useless or dangerous. Sanitation failures represent one of the most underestimated threats in safe room scenarios. Most people plan for toilets or waste management systems, but very few think through what happens when those systems fail without power. If your safe room has a flushing toilet connected to municipal water and sewer systems, it stops working the moment water pressure fails, which happens within hours of power loss in most urban areas. Even if you have stored water for flushing, where does that waste go? In below-ground bunkers, sewage can back up when pump systems fail. In above-ground safe rooms, holding tanks fill quickly and begin producing methane gas and hydrogen sulfide, both of which are toxic and explosive. The stench alone makes the space unbearable, but the real danger is disease. Human waste contains E. coli, salmonella, hepatitis, cholera, and dozens of other pathogens. In a sealed environment, those pathogens become airborne through aerosolization and contaminate everything. Families trapped in their own filth develop severe gastrointestinal infections, skin infections, and respiratory diseases. Without proper medical treatment, these infections can be fatal, especially in children. The irony is devastating. You survive the external threat, only to die from dysentery inside your own safe room. Psychological factors compound every physical danger we've discussed. Humans are not designed for long-term isolation in small, dark, sealed spaces. When you combine oxygen depletion, temperature extremes, poor air quality, and unsanitary conditions with the stress of knowing there's a crisis outside, psychological breakdown happens fast. Within 72 hours of high-stress confinement, most people begin experiencing severe anxiety, depression, paranoia, and irrational decision-making. Family members turn on each other, Arguments escalate into violence. Parents make catastrophic choices like leaving the safe room prematurely or refusing to ration supplies properly. Children become hysterical and inconsolable. Sleep deprivation from stress and uncomfortable conditions degrades mental function even further. Decision-making ability, which is critical during survival scenarios, deteriorates to the point where people make choices that directly lead to their deaths. There are documented cases from disaster scenarios where families had sufficient supplies and security but died because psychological collapse led to murder-suicide, premature evacuation into dangerous conditions, or simply giving up and waiting to die. Communication blackout is another critical vulnerability that safe room owners ignore. Most safe rooms are designed with thick walls and sometimes Faraday cage properties to protect against electromagnetic pulses. That's excellent for protecting your electronics, but it also means cell phones, radios, and other communication devices can't send or receive signals from inside the room. When power fails and you're sealed inside, you're completely cut off from information. You don't know if help is coming. You don't know if the danger outside has passed. You don't know if evacuation orders have been issued. This information vacuum forces you to make life or death decisions with zero intelligence. Do you stay sealed inside and risk dying from internal threats? Or do you open the door and potentially expose yourself to external dangers? Without communication, every choice is a blind gamble. Military and professional survival facilities solve this with hardened external antennas and redundant communication systems. But residential safe rooms almost never include these features because they're expensive and require professional installation. Let's examine real-world examples because this isn't theoretical speculation. These failures have killed people. During Hurricane Katrina in 2005, multiple families drowned in their fortified safe rooms when flooding occurred faster than predicted, and they couldn't escape because their electronic locks failed without power. The very security features designed to keep them safe became death traps. In Texas during the 2021 winter storm, people died of hypothermia inside their homes because they didn't understand that shelter without heat is not protection from cold. Families sealed themselves in interior rooms thinking it would help them stay warm, but they were actually concentrating cold and creating conditions for faster heat loss. In India, there have been multiple documented cases of families dying in their own bunkers during heat waves when temperatures exceeded survivable levels and they couldn't or wouldn't leave because of civil unrest outside. These weren't unprepared people. They were individuals who had invested in protection, but didn't understand the complete threat matrix. So what's the solution? How do you prevent your safe room from becoming a death trap when power fails? The answer requires rethinking your entire approach to safe room design and operation. First, ventilation must be mechanical and manual, not just electrical. You need passive air circulation that works without power. This means installing manual air vents with proper filtration that can be opened and closed by hand. You need intake vents near the floor and exhaust vents near the ceiling to create natural convection currents that circulate air even without fans. These vents must have multi-stage filtration, including HEPA and activated carbon that protects against particulates, chemicals, and biological agents while still allowing airflow. Yes, this reduces your protection against certain threats, but suffocation kills faster than almost anything else. You need to balance security with survivability. Second, you must have independent long-term power generation that doesn't rely on grid electricity or short-term battery backup. Solar panels with battery banks sized for your actual consumption needs, not just minimal lighting, provide renewable power indefinitely. Wind generators can supplement solar in areas with consistent wind. Micro-hydro systems work if you have running water on your property. These systems need to be hardened against EMP, physically secured against theft, and maintained regularly. You also need manual backup for critical systems. Manual air pumps, hand crank ventilation fans, and mechanical air circulation devices ensure you can move air even if all electrical systems fail. These aren't expensive or complicated, they're just not included in standard safe room designs because installers focus on high-tech solutions. Third, temperature management requires passive systems that work without electricity. Proper insulation is foundational, but it must be balanced so you're not creating a sealed thermos that traps heat or cold. Thermal mass materials like water barrels or stone can absorb excess heat during the day and release it at night. moderating temperature swings. In hot climates, underground installation provides natural cooling because earth temperature below frost line stays relatively constant year-round. In cold climates, you need backup heating that doesn't require electricity and doesn't produce carbon monoxide inside your space. Catalytic propane heaters designed for indoor use, properly vented wood stoves, or even candle-based heating systems can maintain survivable temperatures. You must calculate your fuel requirements for extended outages, not just a weekend camping trip. A month of heating or cooling requires substantial fuel storage and proper rotation to prevent degradation. Fourth, water and sanitation systems must function independently of municipal infrastructure and electrical pumps. You need stored water in quantity, calculated at 1 gallon per person per day minimum for drinking, but you actually need 3 to 5 gallons per person per day when you include cooking, hygiene, and sanitation. For a family of 4 planning for a 30-day shelter period, that's 360 to 600 gallons of water storage. Water must be properly stored in food-grade containers, rotated regularly, and potentially treated to prevent bacterial growth. For sanitation, composting toilets or bucket systems with proper waste management protocols prevent disease without requiring plumbing or power. You must have sanitation supplies including toilet paper, soap, disinfectant, and waste disposal bags in massive quantity. These aren't glamorous preps, but they're what keeps you alive when your safe room becomes your entire world for weeks. Fifth, air quality monitoring is non-negotiable. You can't manage what you can't measure. You need battery-powered or hand-crank carbon dioxide monitors, oxygen meters, and carbon monoxide detectors with audio alarms. These devices tell you when air quality is degrading before you become symptomatic and unable to respond. When CO2 levels hit 1,000 parts per million, it's time to increase ventilation. When oxygen drops below 19%, you must take immediate action to bring in fresh air. These monitoring devices cost less than $200 total, but could save your entire family's life. Sixth, you must have protocols for when to shelter in place versus when to evacuate. Your safe room should never be a prison. You need clear decision-making criteria based on monitored conditions inside and outside. If internal air quality reaches dangerous levels and you can't restore it, evacuating becomes necessary even if external conditions are dangerous. If temperature extremes threaten life, you must have a plan to move to alternative shelter. This requires having go bags pre-positioned, multiple exit routes from your safe room, and predetermined rally points where family members meet if separated. Flexibility and adaptability save lives. Rigid commitment to a failing plan kills you. Seventh, you need realistic training and testing. Most people build safe rooms and never actually use them until the emergency happens. That's insane. You must conduct regular drills where your entire family spends 24 to 72 hours living in your safe room with systems offline to identify problems before they become fatal. How long does temperature actually remain comfortable? How does air quality change with multiple people inside? How do your children handle the stress and confinement? What supplies run out faster than you calculated? Which systems fail or don't work as expected? These drills are uncomfortable and inconvenient, but they're the only way to validate your preparations. Every military and professional organization trains extensively because training reveals gaps that theory misses. The fundamental error most people make is treating their safe room as a complete solution rather than one component of a comprehensive survival strategy. A safe room is a tool, not a guarantee. It provides temporary protection against specific threats while you implement other aspects of your survival plan. It should never be your only option. You need multiple layers of security, including early warning systems that give you time to avoid danger entirely, hardened home defense that protects without requiring you to seal yourself away, community networks that provide mutual support and shared resources, and evacuation plans that get you out of the danger zone rather than trapping you inside it. Preppers who put all their resources into a single safe room and nothing else have created a very expensive coffin. The safe room industry sells a dangerous fantasy that you can buy your way to safety with one expensive installation. They show you thick walls and fancy locks and military-grade air filters, and they take your money, but they don't explain the physics of human survival in enclosed spaces without power. They don't talk about oxygen depletion or carbon dioxide poisoning or heat stroke or hypothermia or disease or psychological breakdown, because those topics don't sell safe rooms. They create liability concerns. So you end up with a technically sophisticated room that will kill you in a real extended emergency because it's fundamentally designed around electrical systems that fail when the grid goes down. The solution isn't to abandon safe rooms entirely. It's to re-engineer them for true off-grid survivability with manual backups, renewable power, passive ventilation, independent water and sanitation, and proper monitoring systems. That's real protection. Everything else is just expensive false confidence. And if you want to go deeper, you'll find in the pinned comment some guides and documents that can take your preparedness to the next level. Actual technical specifications, system designs, equipment lists, and protocols that professionals use, not marketing material from safe room salespeople. Check them out when you're ready to get serious about survival. When the power grid collapses and society breaks down, your safe room will either be your salvation or your grave. The difference comes down to whether you understood and fixed these critical vulnerabilities before the crisis hit. Most people won't take action until it's too late because these problems seem abstract and unlikely, until you're actually suffocating in a sealed room while your family panics around you. Don't be one of those people. Don't let your investment in protection become the thing that kills you. Every single vulnerability we discussed today has a solution, and every solution is achievable with knowledge, planning, and relatively modest additional investment compared to what you've already spent on your safe room. The question isn't whether you can afford to implement these fixes, it's whether you can afford not to when your family's survival depends on it. Take action now, test your systems, identify your gaps, and fix them before you need that room to save your life. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep teaching you what the survival industry won't. The brutal truths that keep you alive when everyone else dies from ignorance. Share this with anyone who has a safe room or is planning to build one. They need this information before they make fatal mistakes. And leave a comment telling me what your safe room's biggest vulnerability is so we can discuss solutions together, because your survival matters. And this community is here to help you make it through when the world goes dark.